And that is the subject of Media Watch, presented today by James Creedon, here with us in the studio. Hello
Good
there,
evening,
James.
Laura.
It's crazy, isn't it? France is now seeing its own police force protesting.
That's
But
right.
actually, they've got a specific grievance, haven't they, as we just heard there. They say they're bearing the brunt of all the anti-government violence. Hundreds of them have been injured. We had an incident today where a police car was actually set on fire, an investigation there. So do they have a point?
I guess on social media, a lot of people do think they have a point. There are hashtags about that. We'll get to the broader kind of
Yes.
almost bizarre element of protests, police protesting against violence because of the
François
protests.
Hollande will be protesting against himself next.
Right.
And then what will happen?
This is it. I mean, France, it's easy sometimes to kind of stereotype it because it's so odd, the fact that there have been weeks now of protests against this labour law, then the police coming in protesting that. And there was a parallel protest today by those who were saying, hold on a minute, police force, you've also gone over the top, and we're protesting against you, protesting against us being allowed to protest. Right. We'll get to what's online because otherwise we could lose our way. It's on the front page of all the news websites. The police and citizens, are they irreconcilable? Because the perception is that the public isn't supporting the police force enough. That's at least what some of the police are saying. The hashtag anti-cop hatred, en anti-flic, has been doing the rounds of social media. Most people using that hashtag to support the police. For example, Aurore Berger here saying support to those who protect us and in particularly difficult circumstances or conditions. There's the image of that police car you were just mentioning there that was burnt today, a symbol really of what the police are arguing, that the conditions in which they're working are just too difficult and there is too much violence that they have to face. What else do we have? En anti-flic. It's one person saying here, well, the police are no angels either. And you can see here one moment, this actually got a lot of attention a couple of weeks ago, where a woman sitting on a cafe terrace, she was having a coffee, they were using tear gas. She got up to say, hey guys, can you don't have to use tear gas so close to people having a coffee. And this was the reaction. So,
oh, really? This is that woman?
That's right. Wow. And there was there was a poster by the CGT trade union. Of course, a lot of the unions are involved in organising some of the protests, which got a lot of criticism from politicians because it was depicting the police as being overly violent. So I suppose you could say there are arguments on both sides. Some people saying, the police have had a lot to contend with in the last year and a half with successive attacks, etc., and that they are protecting us. Now, there was one interview.
Well, apparently, we had a guest on, a specialist in policing earlier, and he said that support for the police in France is now up at 80% following the terrorist
That's right.
attacks.
So, in fact, I think there is a bit of misrepresentation in some parts of the sort of anti-police sentiment, which isn't strictly speaking true. As this guy who was interviewed on Europe 1 radio today said, the police are as popular as ever. That has not changed since January 2015, which was the Charlie Hebdo attack, and then of course in November of last year there was the Paris attacks, and the police actually got a lot of support around that time. They were even being cheered in the streets. Others saying, I don't understand this anti-cop hatred hashtag. Does that mean that demonstrating means to demonstrate about, for example, the labour law reforms, is that meant to mean that we're demonstrating means you're against the police? In other words,
it's all got a bit confused,
right? It has got a little bit confused, but certainly I suppose
because people have to remember, here in France, the right to protest is a very precious right, isn't it?
That's right, and it's protected, as it is in other countries as well, by the law, but also very much a cultural thing. People get out onto the streets very regularly, and it is difficult for the government to push through reforms that would be more easily implemented in other countries because of
it's an accepted part of life here in France, isn't it?
That's right, and I think when people view it from overseas, it's like, well, what is going on?
What are they up to
on
now?
On the one hand, I suppose it's something to be feted because it means there's an element of true democracy. On the other hand, some people can view it as going overboard on occasion. Courrier International, looking at the view from across the channel. This is the Times of London and Charles Bremer. He is talking about how in the UK, really, there is more support for the police than, as he views it, there in France. So I think from overseas, what was going on today, it must be viewed as a little bit odd.
Absolutely.
Protests against protests against protests.
Absolutely. All right, let's, well, you just took us to the UK. Let's stay there because Queen Elizabeth, today she, as tradition dictates, she made the Queen's speech, which means opening the next session of Parliament and outlining what her government plan to do over the next session. And the big question is, though, is how would the Queen vote in the referendum on in or out of the EU?
I think it's fascinating to look at this because it's such a tight it's going to be such a tight vote. I mean, the country really seems to be divided on this question. The Conservative Party, the ruling party, is divided on the question. You've got the former Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, calling for Brexit. You've got David Cameron trying to keep the rally.
The man who's holding the referendum.
That's right. So what does she think about it? She is after all the heir to she's to I suppose the Queen Victoria and all of these the heads of empire. So one would think maybe the Queen. What does she think about the European Union?
Officially doesn't have any opinions
That's
on anything.
exactly it. And so the Queen, or rather the Sun, reported on the 8th of March that she was in favour of Brexit. Now, they were basing this on some very tenuous claims and
what
conversations.
the butler heard kind of thing.
What the butler heard, as she apparently said to some MP a couple of years ago, I don't understand Europe. And of course, this for the Sun means she wants Brexit, which obviously is a little bit of a leap. In any case, the press watchdog Ipso came out saying this was inaccurate reporting. So they came out to say this the same day as the Queen's speech, interestingly enough. This is a tweet I found to show the extent to which what the Queen thinks, or what she is thought to think, could influence the vote. I'm loyal to Her Majesty the Queen in Great Britain, not to bureaucrats and the European Union. So if the Queen was seen to be supporting Brexit, I'm sure it could push some towards voting in favour of it if they were kind of sitting on the fence. So it's very important, I suppose, for her to appear neutral on questions like this. The Sun, in its editorial today, saying, look, we stand behind this position. We believe that this is what she thinks, and it would be irresponsible of us not to report it. But of course, the watchdog really saying that this is inaccurate reporting, and it's not, of course, the first time the Sun has been rapped on the knuckles for inaccurate reporting.
The weekend version of the newspaper was forced to close down, wasn't it?
Indeed, that's right. Can we really trust the red tops in terms of what they're saying on that? Maybe not.
Okay, James, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much
Laura.
indeed.